So thank you for the people who made it here. Instead, we have a strike in Berlin. But I would like to welcome you all to the evening and look forward to a stimulating discussion we will have today. But first, I would like to hand over to the Dean of the Faculty of Biology, Chemistry and Pharmacy, Professor Beate Paulus, who would like to address greetings to us all. Thank you.
So, welcome to the FU Berlin. So, especially all members of the Una Europa community, which came here to discuss, but also the public, if there is someone, and our guests for the today panel discussion. And that are Professor Dr. Aletta Bonn, who is the Berlin State's Commissioner for Nature Conservation and Landscape Management. So she is it's an honorary position, so she's doing it next to her professorship, and very welcome here for the discussion. And then from our Una Europa partners from the UCM in Madrid, Professor José Aguirre and Professor José Molina, sorry, I don't speak Spanish, even. And another member of the panel will be Vivien Lovette, a student here. And the topic of today is here, Biodiversity Monitoring, Campuses as Citizen Science Projects. And like I'm a scientist, going through it, what does the title mean? I think biodiversity is the often overlooked problem in sustainability in general. So we always talk about climate change and the effects, but the effects of biodiversity or the loss of biodiversity is most probably an as big problem as climate change. And then the next one is campus. So I say now we as a university, and what makes a university? It's the place of knowledge, it's the place of teaching, so it is the impact to society. And I think biodiversity is really a topic which needs multipliers, which needs, the last topic here, citizen science projects to really get into the society. And it's a special, I should say special thing, a special good thing, that we do it not alone, here a little bit at the FU, but we learn from each other in a broader community in the Una Europa framework. And I have seen the slide later, so that are these 11 universities all over Europe. I do not know whether now all 11 universities, probably not. Not everyone can make it to everything, but we want to join efforts. And therefore, I'm looking forward to the panel discussion. But before we start with this one, I want to thank the organizers, which have not only organized this panel discussion, but also organized the whole conference, that are Janina Teige, Rebecca Rongstad, and Vanessa Zacher, the other probably here sitting. So that is the team. So I think they really deserve also from the faculty the thanks that they've done this good thing.
Thank you very much for these words. So before we start with the actual event, I would like to give a few introduction words about the context of this Una.Lecture. I have to say, yeah, more or less, most people know Una who are here, because I know we have together the whole day, but some people may, I expected more public, so some people may not even know what Una Europa is. It is an alliance of 11 universities in Europe, that have set themselves to the task of working on the concept for the university of the future. One of the topics they have decided to work on is sustainability. And as we heard before, in the area of sustainability, the climate crisis is one in everyone's lips, but the biodiversity crisis is comparable to it. For this reason, the Free University Berlin celebrated the Year of Biodiversity last year. As the biodiversity crisis is not a phenomenon limited to Berlin, as we all know, we asked ourselves last year whether we could also launch joint projects on biodiversity in the Una Europa Alliance, at network or existing projects. Together with students from 2 modules of the Biodiversity Master's Program, we have therefore prepared a Una workshop on biodiversity, which is currently taking place at the Free University. So the 3 students who are organizing this workshop with us sitting there, so it's Jule, Britt, and Thea. They helped us a lot. So, however, we did not want to hold this activity in secret, but we would also ask to talk to you as an interested public about what we as universities can do for biodiversity on our campuses and how we can involve you all. That is why we have invited you to this Una.Lecture today. Any research, as well as measures to counteract the crisis, first requires data collection. In this case, biodiversity monitoring. This is not only carried out at the FU Berlin with a blooming campus, but also at other Una universities, as we hear in some minutes, often in campus initiatives as living labs. Today, we would like to talk to you about the opportunities and challenges associated with such citizen science projects. We are therefore delighted that you are here today and that we found 4 speakers who, after a brief introduction to the topic, are prepared to discuss it with, first among themselves and then with you in the audience. We would like to welcome, therefore, as we heard before, Professor Aletta Bonn. She is a professor for ecosystem services at the Friedrich Schiller University in Jena. Her professorship is part of the German Center for Integrative Biodiversity Research, supported by the Helmholtz Center of Environmental Research. She is, sorry for that, so, no, sorry. Where am I there? She's also interested in the linkage of biodiversity and people. How do people impact on biodiversity, and how can we assess change? How can we jointly create knowledge and develop solutions for healthy ecosystems and healthy people? We have also invited her in her function as Berlin State Commissioner for Nature Conservation and Landscape Management. And then we invited 2 colleagues from the UCM, the Universidad Complutense de Madrid. So Professor José Aguirre is professor at the UCM in the Department of Biodiversity, Faculty of Biodiversity, Ecology and Evolution. Sorry, we have it the other way around. So he is keen on making science accessible to society through different projects to engage young students, adults, and other sectors of society as stakeholders of decision makers. His main research line focuses on interactions between human and biodiversity. We have invited him because he is one of the founders of the Biodiversity Monitoring Group of the UCM in 2008, along with Francisco Cabrero and José Antonio Molina. So the next one we invited was Professor José Antonio Molina. He is also the professor, or he's teaching as a professor. I didn't know exactly, I have to say, where your professorship is, but you are teaching at the Department of Biodiversity, Ecology and Evolution at the UCM, and he's keen on conservation. He has highlighted the value of the classification of habitats and plants in plant community as a tool to establish priorities in biodiversity conservation. We have invited him because he's also one of the founders of the Biodiversity Monitoring Group of the UCM in 2008. So we have them both there. And last but not least, we invited Vivien Lovette. She's one of our bachelor students here at the Free University. She's currently working on her bachelor thesis, which focuses on a monitoring case study she conducted on campus during the past summer. Her research explores how butterflies' composition differ across various types of vegetation we have here. In November 24, she earned a certification with special honors in butterfly and barnet moth identification from the Bonn Academy. She has led several butterfly walks for the Berlin Senate as part of the project Lass Berlin Aufleben, and assisted Professor Aletta Bonn with the Vielfalter Garten project. Currently, she is also contributing to the Blooming Campus initiative at the Free University. As an introduction, we would now start the Una.Lecture with a short presentation on the Biodiversity Monitoring Group in Madrid, after which our speakers would share their thoughts on the issue in a panel discussion. Afterwards, we would like to open the discussion here in the plenum for you before inviting you to a get-together in the foyer. There you will also have the opportunity to look at posters on the individual universities, which students from a model of the Master of Biodiversity, Evolution and Ecology have created for you under the guidance of Dr. Florian Ruland. So I would like to invite two Josés from Madrid to tell us about their impressive project they have there.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for your invitation. We're having a really good time here in Berlin. So I'm here, my name is José Aguirre. I'm here to talk to you about the Biodiversity Monitoring Group and all the activities we're developing at the University Complutense campus. Who we are? We're just a group of professors, students, and people, workers of the university, that we were in the middle of an economical crisis in 2008. Most of us were at that time, and we had to find creative solutions to bring science to our students. We thought that the best way was just start doing activities around our own building. So in 2008, Professor Cabrero and I started really small, and that's one of the messages I want you to take home today. Start small if you're thinking about starting these projects in your institutions. We start really small with little monitoring programs for birds, butterflies, and ants in 2008. We kept moving, and we added next boxes, we added bird ringing station, butterfly transects, and all the way up to 2018 when Jose Antonio joined us, and finally we have the third leg of our project. We had vertebrates, we have arthropods, and then we had the plants covered, and we started doing all the plant surveys. What I'm going to do today is just try to give you an idea of how important one program as this could be for your institution, because such programs trying to identify, evaluate, and then help us manage biodiversity. So one program, such as one of these monitoring programs, should have a clear objective or objectives, should have continuity in time. This is not actually the first long-term monitoring program that we had. We had a much longer one in Parque del Oeste, which is a city park in the western area of the city. It started in 1992. I look young and nice, but I'm a lot older than you might think. And we started in 1992, so it's been over 30 years now working there. And it should have a methodology. We've been discussing about this in our workshop. We should come out with methods that we can replicate in order to be able to match our data together and come out with stronger conclusions in our different institutions. So these are the three sides of the program that we should have. We should then choose some bioindicators, organisms. As a biologist, bioindicator is a word a little tricky for me, but most of people understand when we talk about bioindicators. It's just a group of animals easy to identify and that are going to give us a wide range of information about an entire ecosystem. So we have to choose one of these bioindicators or several in our cases. So for our biodiversity monitoring program, in Spanish, Grupo de Seguimiento de Biodiversidad, we knew that we have to had some objectives. Of course, we're a teaching institution, so we were supposed to teach our students how to do things, learn by doing. That concept pop up this afternoon also. So we taught them how to use, how to do sample collections, how to handle fauna and flora, how to work on experimental design, and that's the research leg that kicks in. How to design experiments, how to collect data, and how to manage this data for the analysis. And of course, we're a public institution, so we have to outreach to society. We have to teach society what we do. We're not scientists in a lab, we're scientists in the field, and we want people to come and see what we do. It's nothing secret, it's nothing, we like people to participate. And experience have told us over the years that people love doing science. And all of us like someone who knows a little bit more than us to tell us about something, which is because it's interesting. So how do we arrange all this? As you can see, this is not a pyramid. The professors are not in the top. We're a pretty horizontal organization in that sense. But of course, you need technical knowledge, and that we can give because we don't know a lot more than our students. We're just more experienced than that. We've been in the business a lot more time. So we give them that assessment, help them with the analysis design, with the planning. Of course, we supervise that. We have a group of experienced students. They've been collaborating with us, no matter their degree, no matter how old they are. They've been collaborating with us, and they've been learning all the procedures and all the ways of doing things. And of course, we have a whole bunch of volunteer students and personnel in general attending our activities. We have over 4,000 people already working with us over the years. So with all this, we are covered, and we know that our data are going to be reliable. What do we do? Just a few notes on that. We do scientific bird ringing. Of course, you need a license for this, and we have licensed. We already licensed 34 students so far to be able to handle birds and to ring them. So we have a banding station. We have a constant effort site. For those of you that are not familiarized with this, it's a place where you learn using the same conditions over the time, and you do it over and over and over and over. Using this technique, we can characterize the evolution of avian communities. It's like, now it's the Berlinale right here, right? If I show you just one picture from one movie, can you tell me the argument of that movie? Probably you can't. If I show you a trailer for that movie, you can get pretty much an idea, but if I show you the entire movie, so we're trying to put picture after picture, and that's what a long-term program is. We're trying to get as many pictures as possible so we have an idea of what the movie is about. We also work on phenological aspects. I'm not going to bother you with results and all that. I just want you to know what we do. We also use next boxes. Next boxes are very important because they are passive sampling elements that we have around our campus. We started with 20. Now we have over 1,000 next boxes in the city of Madrid. We visit each one of them 10 times per year. So it's a good exercise. I always tell my students, the street is my gym, right? You hang the boxes and you let them down. You do it 20,000 times per season, so it's very nice. What bird species do we have in campus? Since all our next boxes are the same, we can compare data because we have standardized effort. But we've been looking at things, weird things like how anthropogenic materials around the city are used by the birds in the boxes, and how can this affect their breeding performance. So you have a sampling unit that is going to be there year after. We have nest collections over 10 years, 12 years of the same box in the same place, so we can study the materials they've been using in the very same place over the years. So it's very interesting in that sense. We perform bird surveys. For our Finnish colleague, we use the Finnish transect. It's called like that. We just walk and watch. And we write all the birds we see. This is our campus. As you can see, we have the same transects that we have for butterflies. So they overlap. So we're counting birds and butterflies over the same transects, also bats in the same place. And our plant plots are around this survey. So we keep adding layers of information one after another, okay? So we have the basic, and then we come out with experiments, we come out with particular studies that we develop over that layout. We also do micro-mammal surveys. 3 days and 3 nights, twice a year. We set up a whole network of traps. We trap them, alive, of course. We mark them, and we release them. We also do bat surveys. We use ultrasound microphone, and we do point surveys. As you can see, it's the campus again, and we just perform those surveys around the campus. 3 visits per month. We also have refuge boxes for bats. I've seen that you have them around here in Berlin, but we check them 3 times per season to be able to know who is using it and how often they're using it. If we collect the feces from that, we can also work on zoonosis and potential health risks to the people. So as you can see, we can keep adding information to all that. Our entomology section of the group, our colleague Francisco Cabrero takes care of that. He wasn't able to be here today, but they perform butterfly transects using the BMS approach. It's just a walk, 5 meters by 5 meters, and you just keep counting all the butterflies you see. As you can see, campus again, and the transects are overlapping with all the others. What species are in the campus? How is their phenology? If you give stakeholders and you give decision makers in campus information, they can perform better gardening techniques. They can time their mowing schedule according to this. So we work in close contact with them. Not all the time they listen to us, but we try. Odonata monitoring, that's dragonflies. We have several water features around campus, and we not only account for how many dragonflies we see, but we recapture. We mark them, and we recapture them to see the survival features also. We ant monitor. We have a grid of cells, 10 meters by 10 meters, covering the entire 85 hectares of our campus. And we sample every single one of them to account for the ants and to identify invasive species of ants also. So we do lots of things, like you can see. We also do some plant and vegetation, and since José Antonio is here, I'll let him just tell you about it. So.
It's coming back in a few minutes. We also study vegetation and plants in our campus, and I'll present some results, not just the methodology, but at the end, about the things that we did in the campus. The first of all was study the plant biodiversity, how many species. There are almost 500 of native species, non-planted, and but we didn't know anything about plant communities. So the first step was to study plant communities. We found that there were some of the plant communities that were very extended. So we focus on this vegetation, and our first aim was to see how was their ecosystem services. These plant communities belongs to the unit of vegetation that we call in vegetation science ruderal vegetation. This means that they are native, they are wild, that they are spontaneous, and they are not planted, but they grow in the city. They grow spontaneously in the campus. Far away that we expected about this vegetation has it is very interesting. It is very interesting in terms of biodiversity, of maintaining biodiversity, but also of ecosystem services, but not in the same way. From one vegetation to other vegetation types, there were differences in their ecosystem services they provide. This had an impact in the scientific world, in scientific contribution, but zero impact in the management of our campus already. We expect, we hope that in the near future we have more success. This is about results, about things we are doing, and we expect to this experience of Una Europa link together is the topic about permanent plots. In the Valentine's Day of 2019, a group of students and myself established the first permanent plot of vegetation dynamics in our UCM campus. And it was 1 square meter. It was February, and because it was February, the annual grassland in which we established this first permanent plot, it was green. And the left side, it is in summer, and is brown. It's a different point. Focus on permanent plot, we study vegetation dynamics, and we can link this vegetation dynamic with interannual variability. And this is interesting because sampling vegetation, you can link with climate variability, and you can model about climate change. For example, last year in Madrid rained 3 times the previous year, and the biomass was more than 3 times higher. So you can see in 2017 was a year extremely dry, and the dynamics was very different. The dominance changed from leguminaceae to poaceae, from legumes to grasses. And also we can see the ecological succession. For this aim, we need long permanent plots. I won't see this objective, but I hope that in the future will be addressed. This is the temperature today in Helsinki, Berlin, and Madrid. And it is very illustrative, I think. In Helsinki, +1, -1 was the maximum and minimum temperature. Is close to 0, no a big variation. In Berlin, a little bit more, 2 and -2. And in Madrid, 17 as maximum temperature and 6 degrees as minimum. 11 degrees of oscillation, of variation. Well, it's typical. Madrid is in 45 degrees of latitude, and we are in higher. But Madrid is in under Mediterranean climate, and Berlin and Helsinki under temperate climate. So this is very, very interesting, because this type of programs of Una Europe can be the opportunity to establishing permanent plots along climate gradients. So Una Europa, I mean, is a real chance to work together to get results on the extent of global change, if it is a local change or it is a global change. Let's us do it possible. So, Chechu?
Okay, I'm back. We're almost finished, huh? Everything looks very nice. We've done a really good job, but it's like when you try to climb a mountain, you just look at the next step. We never look up in the mountain. We never really realize that we were going to get this far. We wanted for sure to have a long-term data set. To reach 100 years, you have to start by year 1, year 2, year 3. We're in year 15, 16 now. So just keep going and keep moving forward. We still have some issues to deal with. One of them is to reach society. First, to reach our own authorities at the university, and then to reach society. To do so, we have an Instagram account. Please follow us, okay? Biodiversidad.UCM, where we post most of our activities, our calendars, etc. We have a Facebook for you, all of you old people around. We still have a Facebook account, okay? But we also have a YouTube channel where we upload some of our activities as short videos, illustrative videos showing some of the things we do. We post them regularly up there. The thing is, we don't have the resources to have someone doing it for you, doing it for us. So it's us that have to take care of that. Usually our younger students are more into this, but still. This is our contact addresses. So in case you need to contact us, you know how to where to find us. Open to visitors. Madrid is really nice during the spring. We guarantee you that you're going to do lots of field work, but you're also going to have lots of fun. So thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, now you can clap. I told you I was going to tell you about any results, but I just want to show you a little thing, how useful this is. Okay, we have the entire setup, right? Imagine you have the setup, and you come out with the experiment, right? That experiment came, and you know how it was called? It was called Corona. We have a lockout for almost 3 months, almost 4 months in Madrid. No students, no campus work, so the plants were just growing as they were supposed to. We have previous data, because we had been working before with all the gardening practices, and then we had our experiment, and then we had the gardening practices back again. So we have the perfect experiment right there in front of our eyes. If we wouldn't have that data from before, we wouldn't be able to compare afterwards or during Corona, for example. Our authorities decided to ban the use of glyphosate in the gardening techniques. These are the data for butterfly counts before and after the use of glyphosate. You can see that they skyrocket high. That is Corona, and that's when they got back to the practices afterward. So you can actually use these tools to manage your campuses or your green spaces. You can see how good the companies are working for you are. This is Parque del Oeste, really close to a campus, a ringing station. And we have the bird capture index, how many birds we capture per visit. You can see that it's not a straight line, it goes up and down. It has to do with the companies working there. When a company starts working, usually in Madrid for 4 years, 5 years, they start doing really great. They put all their effort. When their contract is going to finish, they start doing their work, and the bird counts fall down. We had a fire there, and you can see it in our data. The birds are telling us something wrong happened here. So you can actually use this to manage those areas if you have that information. Not only to know, not only to teach, not only to reach society, but also as a useful tool for management. And now, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So thank you for the impressive talk we have already. So now I would like to invite the 4 speakers to come to the front so that we can start our discussion. Or to close it? No. I was over here, yeah. So, yeah, José, sit down. So we decided to do, together with the students, we discussed which question we would like to ask you. And as a warm-up, we would like to ask you all about a personal experience. So what was your most moving moment in relation to monitoring, maybe on campuses?
See? See. Now it works. That's a hard one. Yeah, I know. And I live it, not every day that we go out monitoring, but almost every day. I try to go as often as possible, but my best moments are when I sit back and I see one of my younger students explaining one of my older students how to do something. And that is great, because you can actually see how important teaching is and how good it is to have people telling the others how to do things. So that would be one of my touching moments, I guess. José Antonio.
Yeah, my best moment about monitoring is not to find any plan, any community as new. No. It's related with the students, and it's in relation, for example, when I show the consequence of a bad management in vegetation, and is their reaction and how they want to change the things and to contact with other people. I see the innocence in their eyes and how they think or I hope, but they think that they can change the things easily, no? And I think it's a good moment for a teacher, and you think that your main aim has been done.
Thank you. So I have to say that there were multiple moments during our project that stood out and that were very special, and I may have to cheat because there were 2 moments that were extra special. So the first one was actually during one of our monitoring rounds in one of the public parks, which was unusual because I came across a butterfly species there that actually hasn't been documented in Berlin or the surrounding area for multiple decades. And it just, happened to be right in front of me, like almost waiting for me, and I was able to catch it and take pictures of it. And I just remember, it was the first it was my first monitoring project, so obviously I didn't have a lot of experience, and I just remember being so excited and texting everyone like, what is this? And then later on finding out that it hasn't been documented in such a long time was very special. And the other moment that I guess it wasn't a moment, but it was just a very positive side effect of participating in a monitoring project, and that was, I didn't expect to find so many good friends, and from the beginning I just felt so much love and support by everyone, and I obviously didn't have any experience going into this project, and I was just overwhelmed by everybody, because these people, especially from the Bluna campus and from the monitoring, they truly dedicate their lives to this campus and to every species that lives here, and they genuinely care, and they're so enthusiastic about it, and that's very contagious. And I just felt very honored and very grateful to become part of this community, and because it truly is a community. And yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, thank you. I think, as you said as well, so it's the glow in the eyes when you recognize and when people learn. So I do a butterfly course as well, and I had some students who weren't from Germany, and I always tell them, you're the biologist now, and you have to map this place. What, me? I've never seen butterflies before, or I don't know, and I can't do it. And then afterwards, when then a girl said to she was quite shy, or a student, and then she said, I felt like a scientist. And I thought, no, you were a scientist. You are a scientist. And that was really nice. And that you can do it. So that was really nice.
Thank you. Sorry, we just have one microphone, so we have to give it away each time. So now a more general question. What benefits or advantages do monitoring projects offer to campus life and society in general? We start there.
Okay, I obviously have to wear my Berlin State Commissioner hat. So we do actually want, so if there are Berliners around, we would love to have a living atlas of Berlin and know what is living here. And that's why monitoring is really important, because as you say, you can then see how is the management, how does it affect it? And I'm sure, from Bluna campus, you will have some stories about this, so I won't say more about this. With regards to citizen science, I think doing science together is something very powerful. And because you can learn by doing, first of all, you empower yourself, and then you can actually see what, first of all, getting the knowledge about species is something beautiful, because you actually, it's you empower yourself, that you learn more about nature. But also, you can, especially if it's done in a group, and I think this is happening in Bluna campus as well, you can have, and we actually did some studies on this, you can gain a feeling of collective efficacy, because if everybody is doing this, then you can think, okay, we're doing this together, and we can maybe also change something together. And you own, at some point, you start to own your campus. Yeah.
Yes, so monitoring projects on campus, not only engage students, us students, into, active research, but it also really highlights the importance of, different species for the ecosystem. And, it's almost, I believe these projects are almost the perfect link between theoretical knowledge and practical application, especially for us students, and being able to actually go outside and watch, nature unfold right in front of you. It's always different when you're sitting in a lecture and you're, reading or watching documentaries on something, but it creates a whole other level of understanding, if you're actually out in nature, spending time and observing. And, the results we are gaining from these projects, can then be used by, city planners and campus management to really push for, a greener infrastructure and more sustainable practices. And I can definitely say that for me personally, and participating in this project that I benefited so much from it. And yeah, so I think we'll talk more about our personal experience later, but yeah.
I would say that which benefits in general you ask. Well, all the living beings, we are linked. So following the One Health terms and definition, a healthy biodiversity is a healthy human also health. So if we were able to connect these thoughts, I think it would be the better for our work. As you said, it is important, these monitoring activities for planning of urban greens, but finally, I would say that is very important for our own existence. So it is very important to be aware about the value of maintaining the biodiversity. It is very, very important for us, for everybody, for every living being.
It's hard to love what you don't know. So the first important thing is it helps you knowing what you got. So many times we don't even know what we have or how much we have of different organisms. That's the first thing. Second thing, it provides objective evaluation tools, which can be used for so many different things, like management, like monitoring programs, like biodiversity, focused activities, etc. It gives our students a way to actually make science. Like you said, they're not doing science; they're scientists. I mean, with the right direction, they can provide valuable data, and that's very important for them. And for society, it's showing our society that our campus are living labs, that many of the initiatives that we take in our campus can lead the entire society towards one place or the other. So we have an opportunity, but we also have a big responsibility in terms of being an example for our society of how things should be done. So that's also a big responsibility.
Thank you. And now we would like to have a more specific aspect of it. So what positive effects have ongoing or past monitoring projects already achieved in your personal experience you have so far? I think you show us something, but...
Yeah, I mean, you saw the results, right? I mean, that's science in action. I mean, science is good for papers, it's good for conference, it's good for each other, because we scientists just, palm our backs and say how nice and good we are. But it's our responsibility to work for the society and to provide them with useful tools. You've seen them there, so that's all I have to say.
You go. Okay. You go. So I guess, like I said earlier, actively participating in a project like this on campus, really, deepen my understanding. And, I didn't have any previous knowledge on monitoring or butterflies. And I remember, starting out and thinking, I will never be able to detect a butterfly. They're so quick, you know, I know nothing about it, my eyes can't adjust, and this is impossible. And, you know, surely enough, after a few rounds, you know, my eyes did adjust, and that moment came when I realized, you know, you can learn so much about a species by just monitoring it and just spending time, and that's the good thing about monitoring, that it is very repetitive, and, you know, you keep going back to the same place, and, you know, you will learn so much about a species, and I think that's good benefit and, you know, a positive effect of monitoring on campus. And, you know, just to kind of maybe give a little insight on the study we conducted last summer. I mean, we, you know, so maybe just to give a short overview, you know, we proposed that butterfly community, you know, compositions vary between, you know, the campus wildflower meadows and public parks that are obviously regularly mowed and kept mowed at all times, and then the botanical garden. So here we have 3 very different types of vegetation, and you know, we use 2 different monitoring methods to compare, you know, efficiency, and we did find significant results, and we did find that, you know, these habitats here on campus by far have the highest amount of biodiversity, and, you know, there were key species that only occurred or mostly occurred in these habitats, you know, and it just indicates that, you know, these projects really show that, you know, how special these places are, and that we need to, you know, study them and protect them and document them, and yeah, so yeah, I guess that's all I have to say.
Yeah, and I think that's that you can also demonstrate that these flower meadows do actually have an effect because it's in the same city. We also did butterfly monitoring in about 15-minute counts, then the EBMS 15-minute counts in Leipzig. And there we work with the city of Leipzig together, and they're now changing their parks. And so that's my dream for Berlin as well. And there is a showcase, so you can demonstrate that. And I mean, you have already demonstrated this here with, it's 10 hectares now or something on campus where it's really been changed. And another thing is we worked with the botanical garden here as well and did a plant phenology citizen science project. But with that, we also did some citizen dialogues. And actually, they gave input to the Berlin biodiversity strategy, but then the students actually took this up and actually developed the biodiversity strategy for here, for the university. And I think that's just fantastic. So that this, the Blühner campus, the students, and actually they did some dialogues or dialogue fora with us, but then they said, no, we want to do a strategy, and got together with the professors and so on. And I think that's quite an achievement. And so that the university president now sort of is very proud of the Blühner campus. Yeah.
So thank you. So now we would like to get an eye on the effect of Una. So we are discussing in this workshop which is going on if we should do it European-wide or Una-wide biodiversity monitoring together. So our next question would be, what are the advantages of connecting monitoring projects across Europe, both for scientifically things and in terms of university or politics and society?
So yes, connecting, you know, monitoring projects across Europe, you know, I believe has many advantages. I mean, you are obviously enriching the data pool, right? I mean, if you are pulling information from all these different countries, you are automatically strengthening or creating a more robust and reliable data pool. And, you know, I believe it can only help us understand shifts in biodiversity and, you know, shifts that are due to climate change or landscape changes. And, you know, maybe it helps us understand, like, you know, migration or adaptation patterns. And, you know, we're obviously all going for the same goal and, you know, trying to learn more about nature and, you know, the ecosystem. And, you know, I think collaboration and working together, especially in science, is absolutely crucial and necessary, and I think everyone can only benefit from it.
Okay. Yes, I agree with. I sorry, Vivien. It is absolutely necessary to work together. We are in the same Earth and the same country, the same continent, and we have no individual solutions, and we can say in the slide I showed before. I show the difference in temperature. That means that it could be now Czechia. Daria told me that Czechia. Daria, where are you? That Czech Republic is getting is being Mediterranean, attending to the last climate data. So people are getting more brown. It's a bad joke, but so the temperature of Madrid is now the temperature of Brno, and the temperature of Berlin, the temperature of Helsinki, and so on. No? So the solution is linked. Is very important to see how biodiversity responds to the global change, to the global warming, to the global change that includes not only global warming, climate change, but also all the things that we are doing in how we manage the Earth. No? So I would say that is essential, is crucial, is very important.
Yeah, I would second you. So first of all, cities are amazing climate laboratories in itself, because you have a gradient of extreme climates, and then university campuses are probably also have a gradient. So, and then to have it across Europe would be fantastic. And then I guess, yeah, also building a student network, learning from each other how to do it. I think that's fantastic. And also, for example, how to engage, where you said you engage with cities, with neighbors. I think here FU does this as well. So I know, for example, in Jena and in Leipzig, we don't do this yet. I think also to learn from you how you manage to get these, amazing 1,000 bird boxes going. Yeah, but to learn how you do it and step by step, and to also to, encourage each other. I think that would be fantastic. And I do think that learning by doing is always deeper. And as you said, I don't know whether you have students who also want to become teachers. I think it's really important to have some species knowledge, and you can only learn this by doing. So, yeah, I think that will be great, and you will have a great data set, and then the longer it gets, the better you can play with it.
Yeah, imagine instead of having one single data generating area, have 11 all around Europe working at the same time as a connected machine. Then you have most of the European territory covered. You'll do it in the universities, so you're making sure that you're doing it the right way, the same way at least. Our way is not the best way. It's just we get together and we think that it's the way of doing things, and so our data will be comparable. But I rather think about this as a networking opportunity, not only for us, university personnel, but for our students. You can do the same thing, the very same thing, but people from different countries are going to look at it a totally different way. I mean, Germans and Spanish, we can do the same thing, and I'm sure we're going to do it. And our mindset is going to be a lot different. Imagine your students learning that mindset from Erasmus. They said somewhere that Erasmus had contributed more to Europe than any other program, and because people get to know each other, and we're actually people talking to people, and students talk to students, and they go out and they have fun, and they also learn science, and they, establish relationships, and that's very important. So it's important for the people also to know how to other people do things.
Thank you. And then you mentioned that we are at the university doing it in our way, in a scientific way to monitor things, but so scientific monitoring requires a high level of species knowledge normally. So, but few people have this outside universities and inside university, I have to say too. People without this experience need help. Therefore, we would like to ask you, how can tools like identification apps be effectively used to generate more data and maybe reliable data? Or is it impossible and we should not share it with society?
Well, I think there are some amazing apps now, and there are some amazing AI tools, and they're fantastic. So I'm sure that although I tell my students they should do their vegetation quadrants properly, I'm sure when I'm around the corner they're just going to use Flora Incognita or whatever. Nonetheless, I think it breaks down the barriers of learning it. I think it is very important also as a biology student or ecology student to learn how to ID it. But I think we shouldn't be snooty of using different tools. So I think that's, and there's a beauty of doing this. I think the beauty is in combining different tools. I think quality checking is something which we always do in science. And so both with citizen science as well as with other science. And I think this is really the task of the scientist to design a project in this way that first of all, you do by good training, you provide some quality checking then during the project and then afterwards the data curation. We all have been, some of you may have been fortunate to get to know species when you were little, but for example, I learned my species during universities and doing ecology field courses, and then having them on campus and then having actually people, older or younger students helping you, I think that they can build a fantastic community. So I'm not quite sure whether I'm asking this, so I think, yes, you should combine different methods. I think it's the good thing about universities, you will have some people who can teach you different ways of identifying, and I think that's good. But I think apps are a wonderful way to also lower barriers and maybe to push yourself just a little bit more, and that you can also self-learn, which you couldn't do before because you always needed somebody to mentor you. But I think going out in pairs and developing sort of mentorships and tandems, I think that's a good way.
Would you like to go first?
Vivien, no.
Okay. I'm a little bit hesitant because I have mixed feelings about apps, and I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I do think they are a phenomenal tool, and we need them, and we do use them a lot, and especially the Blue Campus. We as an initiative have a project within iNaturalist. iNaturalist is an app that you can use for identification and documenting different species, and the Blooming Campus actually has a project within this app where we document all species on campus, and I believe so far they've registered over 4,000 species, and we have close to 200 people actively observing and counting and registering, which is amazing. And, a benefit of these apps is that you can obviously create a platform that everyone can access, and it's easy to handle, and you can get feedback and you can get confirmation by other people. You can, if you don't know what something is, you upload it and ask people, and it's just also a community. But I personally am a little bit old-fashioned also when it comes to identification in the field, and during monitoring, I try to put my phone away as much as possible because, you know, if you're using an app, you're obviously using the internet, and you know, it's just you know, a distraction, and so I try to really put my phone away, and you know, we use nets to catch the butterflies, and then we have special containers. We put them in for a short time, and you know, I was then able to really study the butterfly that was sitting right there in front of me instead of taking a picture and then scrolling through an app and scrolling through libraries and getting distracted, you know. And I guess it also depends what you're monitoring and what you're observing. Maybe, you know, butterflies are so quick and you look away for 2 seconds and you just missed it. So I always try to catch it and, you know, really be tunnel visioned and just use apps and just use books, I mean, and not use the apps so much. But I do think they are necessary, and yeah, I think, you know, especially if you're starting out, or you know, you can obviously use them, and yeah, but I tend to prefer the old-fashioned way.
If there's a design of the study behind that, these new tools can be also useful tools, right? I mean, new tools in science keep popping up over the years, and you always hear old scientists saying that the new tool is not good, or the new tool is not useful, or I much prefer a field guide than an app, for example. But if you have a good design behind it, then you can rely on some of these tools. And if you have a supervision of how those data are generated and managed, then you can rely on that. I have an announcement to make, new paper coming out. We actually assessed what the error, we do, as you can, if you have seen before, we have lots of data on real, traditional monitoring techniques. So we're going to compare that with data generated by these platforms and see how reliable they are compared to real data. There are some papers already on that, but we're going to do it with birds, and we're going to do it with butterflies. So hopefully in a few months, if my students get to work, we'll have some results, but they're analyzing it right now. So that can be another, I mean, our job is just to provide tools to everyone who wants to use them. So that can be a way to be able to assess how trustful these apps can be for our purposes. So.
Well, I don't know use an app for identification. So, but for a learning purpose, I think that this type of use let out the beauty of the identification. I know that this is old-fashioned point of view, but in the learning is a process, and just trying to see which is the species you are observing is very interesting, the way to see the differential characters. I think that is cost time. It's a process that costs time. But with these apps, you are instantaneously the results. In the last field trip I did with a student of the second course of botany, elemental botany, I had to learn the different plants in the surrounding Madrid. It was a very, very nice place. All the shrubs were in flower, yellow, pink, blue, spectacular, white, And I try to, beautiful. You can see the theme, explain the history, how I smell the theme, many things. But in a few seconds, the students take a picture. And when I say Thymus vulgaris, one of the students said, yes, it is. It is Thymus. Thank you. So I don't know if this is the future, but in the fourth course, another subject is analysis of plant biodiversity. We go to the Pyrenees, mountains, no cover, the phones. And it's not identification of plants, it's identification of habitats based on identification of plants. So no apps possible. And even if it were possible, it doesn't work because you can interpret the landscape. And this is nowadays only possible with our brain. So I know that it is very useful. I, for example, use e-naturalist in North America. I wanted to find one ranunculus species, and I follow all localities from the herbarium, and I wasn't able to find. And finally, e-naturalist and the recent records, I went and I find. So I don't know how to say, and I speak a lot.
Thank you very much. So at least before we start the discussion, to open the discussion to the audience, I would like to ask everybody of you to share a short statement with us. What might be our next possible steps to do in a UNA-wide or European-wide biodiversity monitoring on our campuses? So, UNA-wide or European-wide?
Through Europe, entire Europe.
You will start.
Like I said earlier, and what we've also mentioned is, I believe outreach is definitely, important. And, I think just raising awareness and creating more events like this where, people can come together and share experiences and ask questions. And, we've had during our butterfly walks, that we conducted for the citizens of Berlin, we've had so much positive feedback from the citizens, because they really enjoyed going out in small groups and counting and doing monitoring together. And I think if we maybe made it a little bit more like interactive and really emphasizing on the fact that you don't have to be a specialist, you don't have to be the leading butterfly expert or bird expert, to join and to kind of contribute something, and really making it interactive and just doing more outreach and collaborating with the public parks and the schools. And I think that's what we need to do. And
Yeah, maybe I take it from there. I was going to suggest, so if all the 11, so as a first step, as you said, you have to first take the first step. If all the 11 universities did butterfly monitoring, maybe the 15-minute bird counts, because they're easier, and you would just need 3 or ideally 5 per season. A transect is a little bit more involved. And there you can use actually the EBMS. You could do a project actually on the EBMS app. so that it could just be Una Europa, so that you can also see what the others are doing. But what you said is, this is the second step, use the universities as a core in order to go to public spaces or to schools. And so, for example, if students would then feel comfortable that they say, I can go to a school or I can go to my local park and do, for example, a butterfly walk, because this can really empower you, the same as teaching. So if you show somebody else, and then you have sort of these core centers of the universities, and then maybe if you over the years or they're the nucleus of going outside, go into the cities, and then also changing maybe management in city parks through the students. I think that would be cool.
We have the strength of Europe. We are a big continent with lots of people here, so we have the strength. We have the force of diversity. We're very diverse, which is, diversity is always good. It's good in biology, it's good in life. The more diverse we are, the better we are, okay? And we have to lead by example. Our responsibility as universities, as public universities, is to lead and to give an example to society how things should be done. So I guess it's also our responsibility. So you said one sentence.
One sentence.
One
Depends
sentence.
on how long you're saying.
I would like to answer your question, your second question that I didn't answer. Can I? Yeah, sure. It was about the impact of our monitoring work in our campus, and I wouldn't answer because I think zero. But no, he had impact outside, because the council, I can't remember how, but contact with us, and our results has been included in the management of other green spaces in Madrid. So even though you think that your monitoring study has no impact, it's like the teaching it is impact in the students. It has a very high impact, and the monitoring has a very high impact in the society, even though you don't think so.
Cool, thank you. So now I would like to include questions from you. Who would like to ask something? You?
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, the panel. It was amazing to hear all these things. Very, very big example for us that, yes, it is coming up. For you, I have a question. As you showed us these very impressive results from 1992. Being a geographer, I'd like to see if there is any research happened, how these changes in these transects and all these different diversities you showed individually for each species related with the changing landscape within Berlin, within Madrid, or within the periphery that you were working in. Have you had any research on that? And if you have, if you can say something about that, please.
Okay. When you're working in science and you're performing any experiment, you try to fix as many variables as possible, make them constant as many variables as possible. Working in urban green areas and sometimes university campus, not that much, but working in green urban areas has one advantage and one disadvantage. The advantage is that most of the time the habitat remains very constant because the management of urban parks It's very similar. Species are the same, and you can only change the way you manage it, but not the way it is designed. Actually, Parque del Oeste, that example that I saw from 1992, is one of our 5 historical parks in Madrid. That means it's over 100 years old. So it's been like that for 100 years. Only the management is the one that can. And that's the advantage, because you can actually evaluate how that management in the park is affecting your biodiversity, not changes in habitat, because habitat is going to remain pretty constant in that sense. I don't know if this makes sense or not.
It's fine, but I want to know whether there is any study that you know involving you happened or not. Otherwise, we are there, because that means this Una Europa thing that we can share our exchange in knowledge production and everything. Because I was a part of this CLIVA program, which is Berlin University Alliance's research, and we checked these urban greens within Berlin, how it is changing with the changing environment from society and geography both. And we saw some results, how biodiversity is being affected by these changes. So I was wondering, because you have these great results, if we can combine them with geography.
Yeah, one of the things we're trying to do now is integrate the human part, because we're talking animals and plants here, but the human part is a very, very key part of all this equation. So we're trying to work with social scientists to integrate not only how people use these areas, but how beneficial can be, both for biodiversity and for people, certain uses of these areas. So that's an open window for opportunity in many, many different places.
So there's another question.
I have a question for Vivien. You have joined this project as a student, but how do you think we can get more students involved in these types of projects? Because I've noticed at my university, it's very difficult to get my fellow students involved in a lot of stuff, and it's really not that easy. Do you have any tips on that?
That's a really good question. I was very fortunate because I just happened to write an email to the Blühende Campus, because we're lucky here at the Freie Universität that we have this initiative already established, and we have the sustainability initiative, and I just wanted to participate. So I sent out an email, and the next day pretty much they said, actually, we need someone, like for the butterfly monitoring, and I was like, perfect. Like, it's just really, I was very lucky, but I did notice that once I was during the monitoring, that it opened a lot of doors, and so many people were interested in collaborating once I told them about it. So again, I guess outreach and, doing events and maybe having like an open mic evening, or I guess we also have the Erste Woche, which at the beginning of each semester we kind of have info tables and just try to inform the new students about all the projects that are available during the semester. So I guess also social media maybe, and just sharing pictures and making it very interactive and attractive for young people. And I guess social media is probably the quickest and most efficient way to spread the news these days. So do you have a I'm looking at Rebecca because she's in charge of the Blühende Campus, and I'm just hoping for another insight, another idea. If I knew how to find more of you. Oh. Clone myself. Yeah. Well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's a very tough question. Yeah. And yeah.
I don't know if you have this kind of initiatives, but at the beginning of our school year, we have like a presentation session for all the new students to the university. One thing that has been working for us really nice is to introduce them to those students to the monitoring program, because some of them are really coming to the biology school and they're very vocational in that sense. I mean, they've always wanted to be scientists, or they always like plants, or I don't know, some people like plants or butterflies or birds or whatever. So we introduce them and they know that at least there's the possibility to doing that. So sometimes that helps.
You know, I guess also a lot of times students are maybe a little bit intimidated, you know, especially when they are just starting the semester, and you know they read all these projects and initiatives, and you know, like, come and help us out, and you know, come join us, and it's just kind of like, oh my gosh, like I don't have the time to dedicate, you know, a lot of time or something into a new project. And you know, I guess just really emphasizing on the fact that, you know, it really doesn't matter how much time you can put into it. You know, any little bit helps, even if you can only, you know, monitor once a month or once a season. You know, it really doesn't matter, as long as you know, you contribute a small part. And maybe also, you know, when we do share you know, about these programs and initiatives, that we also emphasize on the fact that, you know, this isn't a lifelong commitment that you having to make, you know, because I think that can be very overwhelming for new students. And it was for me too. And then, you know, reaching out and just writing an email and asking, just simply ask a question like, you know, what is this about? How can I help? How much time do I have to, you know, put into this? I think that can oftentimes ease the mind, and maybe then more students would be willing to participate. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of how we recruit students also in others, or not just students, but participants in citizen science projects. I think one of the things is, and this is where the app comes in, sort of if you have an instant representation of your monitoring, if that can be done somehow, but maybe then, yeah, work with geographers, and that you have a GIS map and you see, okay, plop, 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 there has been something done. And I just wonder, but I can't say that this is in any way proven, but if we can, we've got the European nature restoration law now, and that we can then say, okay, we can actually improve our compass, and then we can monitor the difference, and we can make a difference. So I think if it's maybe combined with that, actually, coming back to the butterfly, so the butterfly monitoring is actually one of the indicators for the EU nature restoration law, or maybe picked, the same as the birds. And if you then say, okay, you're contributing to something bigger, but you also see your dots on the map. And then there's, I think what also is always really important is the personal contact. So first of all, pairing up, so having some kind of a tandem scheme, but then also having a beginning of the season get together where you think, okay, well, yeah, I don't need to be perfect. And then also some drinks at the end of the season. I think that's always those socials. Yeah.
I think here was one more question.
Yes, thank you all for those interesting points. I have two questions because, and this is very much in regard to the European aspect of the collaboration, and meant to you as a student and to you as a representative of the Berlin state, because we're always, or we try to be in contact with the scientists, try to support them in international collaboration regarding research and teaching, of course. But with a special regards to the broad topic of sustainability or education about sustainability, and maybe a bit more specific education and engagement about biodiversity, what would you expect from an alliance like Una Europa, like a collaborative effort of 11 universities? What can they offer you as a student? And what would you, as a representative of this state, the local community, wish from this massive knowledge powerhouse kind of? So how can we reach out to you, or how can you use us? How can we use you? And what can we use to you as a student? And maybe even offer something like that to students that are not in that field. So from a completely different discipline, but maybe still reach out to them. 6 questions, maybe.
Okay, now I'm trying to get the city perspective. We actually also have a Urban Nature Plans European project where we're trying to set this up. And I wouldn't say this is, so you have to take step by step. But there will always be some people in city administrations who are interested in conservation. And then if you pick something which a kind of monitoring or, so flower meadows is something maybe which is easier. So if you can say, well, we can work with you together and then maybe also monitor progress, I think most city officials would like that. And if you then can make a celebration out of it, that you say, well, we are contributing to greener, livable, lively cities. I think this is one aspect. I think it's always good to see what's happening in the city anyway, so that you can then say, okay, can we engage? Maybe there is already a big birding community, or there is a big, freshwater or pond, whatever. But for example, with the Klivak project, for example, mapping this, I think people would be interested. I think if, for example, if they have biodiversity strategies or urban greening plans, that you get together and you actually try to talk to, there will always be somebody in the city, I would say, that in the nature conservation or green space management who might be interested in that. They think, okay, yes, you could help us. What worked here in Berlin, or what I saw, is that the students actually were most interested, or it was great to use the campus as a nucleus, because this is something where you go every day, which is yours, which you can make your own. And from then on, I think, and Rebecca can say more to this. So, I mean, the Blühner campus got really an icon here in Berlin. And then I think the Blühwiesen, so which Sophie Lokates does now, sort of across town, I think that was also an offspring of that. So I think it's great to start with a nucleus, and where you feel sort of you can also continue that because you are at the university and it's not too spread out. These are some, but I mean, I don't know how it works in Madrid. So.
Maybe I'm not sure if I understood the question correctly. So you're asking what I, as a student, or from a student's perspective, hope to gain from this collaboration. So, I mean, it always kind of is easy to romanticize something and to, think that, if we have this huge network and if we, collaborate, then we can obviously share information and share know-how and maybe share things that didn't work for us, or, share the things that worked very well. And, I would be incredibly interested to learn how, people in Helsinki or people in Madrid, do their outreach or, do their monitoring and what kind of tools they use and, just the whole procedure. It's, obviously the interest has to be there. And, I think in general, just sharing, I hope to obviously connect to, all these different campuses and all these different people from other countries and learn more about their, methodologies and their results, and then hopefully use that and apply that here, or, take something from it that can benefit, our research here on campus. And, because obviously, things are changing and we can observe changes in the climate and in biodiversity. So, I think, like we said earlier, the more we, share knowledge and share our experience, we only benefit from one another. And I really hope that, by forming this collaboration and working together, that we can we can do that and establish, you know, just a network, and yeah.
So there's one more question.
Well, the Wildlife Foundation's matters are not really in an upscale from the Blooming campus, but it is still great that we have people who, well, in this case, someone who started the Blooming campus and now works on a city level, because we still have this exchange and really benefit from this. But I have one question that is maybe a bit less formal. So you all have your favorite taxa that you monitor. Obviously, it's butterflies, plants, and birds. But if you were now to choose another taxon that you will monitor in the next years, which would be your choice?
Who wants to go first? You're all still thinking.
Okay. I mean, yeah, we've been monitoring lots of taxa, but I think, okay, from the scientific point of view and the potential of the taxa, I would go for bats. Bats are a good bioindicator, and they're going to be very important not only for biocontrol, but also for biomonitoring. I mean, they have many strong points to be my favorite taxa. And also, I always like challenges, and to make people realize how important and how nice bats can be. That's a good one. If I had to go for one of the taxa that we don't work with, well, it's not a taxa, but I would go for grasshoppers, for example. Grasshoppers are a good one. They're not, at least in Spain, they're not involved in any of the animal welfare policies. I mean, for our lawmakers, they don't feel. I think that they feel, but I mean, you don't need as much paperwork to work with them as you need with other species. Birds are just a pain of paperwork. So I would go with grasshoppers. They're all over, and they're more useful as bioindicators that other species. And people like grasshoppers. They're nice. So yeah, I guess that's important too.
I guess I would go for amphibia, like, you know, and you and I have talked about this, you know, because obviously they are an incredibly endangered species, you know, and, you know, we are facing so many droughts, and I don't know a lot about them, actually. I don't have any previous knowledge on amphibia, but they do really interest me, and, you know, we did spend a lot of time at the botanical garden, and they have, you know, a few ponds where, you know, they occur, and that was also always a favorite part of monitoring, you know, going to the ponds afterwards and kind of looking out for amphibia. So I guess I would have to go with that.
It's difficult, yeah. You want something which is sort of, which you don't have to kill, and you have to look at it through a microscope. So that's because otherwise I would say ants would also be a good thing, because you could link to soils. If you have a lot of water in your cities, then obviously dragonflies are beautiful. And they can also be done. So something which you can learn in a season, which I think with grasshoppers you can also, and you have the sounds as well, which is great. Yeah, so I say with ants, but I think at first you probably have to kill them, and that's not.
No, we do monitoring without killing them.
Okay, so how do you do that then?
You just look very close.
Okay.
We try not to kill. I mean, for the determination of some species,
yeah.
you have to kill them, but you only kill one individual.
Yeah. I mean, they are insects. I mean, that's why if you kill one in order to do it and to look at them, and that's why I think the more you get the photo identification going, that's why sometimes then you can choose, you can be less invasive. But I think in order to have satisfaction, I think it's good to have something which you can identify, which is also sort of species. So that's why reptiles in Berlin, we do actually have quite a few reptiles, but if you were just look on campus, you would have just maybe only a few species, and that isn't so much fun. So that's why plants are obviously always the plethora of, where you can do most. Yeah.
I talked this morning about the power of orchids as a flagship species for conservation of Mediterranean grasslands. But we got a project for studying biodiversity in urban green spaces in Madrid. And I asked for a student that implants in the part of the plants that gather all the information about the floristic samplings in Madrid area of natural vegetation, and identify the most frequent species. And she our idea was to take as a symbol of the project. And she identified as Plantago lagopus. Plantago lagopus is a tiny plant, you know, Plantago with no conspicuous flower and with small leaves. So it's very small. To me, it's very beautiful, but for a symbol. So by these days, in the monitoring activities with the students, we found the old friend of the Spanish Civil War. The campus is in the middle of a line front of the defense of Madrid, and there are trincheras. Trenches.
From our Civil War.
Is full of trenches. And in these trenches, in one of these trenches that I have never seen before, there was a remnant of Quercus ilex, that is the tree of the potential natural vegetation around Madrid. So, to me, the most satisfying plant was Quercus ilex by the meaning that is still in a bad situation, because it's a trencher is a depression, is straight and has no a deep soil. But there was a remnant forest in that line, forest of more than 50 years old. Okay. So, Quercus ilex.
Thank you. Is there one last question? Otherwise, I would invite you to go to the foyer, have some drinks, some snacks, and some more discussion. So, thank you. Thank you.